Sultan Semlali, welcome to the program. How are you?
I'm good, and you, Martin?
Very well, very well. Really good to have you. Well, look, for the benefit of the audience, we always like to ask if you wouldn't mind just giving a bit of a background on you, your, what you've done throughout your career, and kind of what brought you into the value space.
Okay. Sultan, I currently lead the value practice at Sitecore. We are a digital experience platform powering some of the most amazing digital experiences. Fortunate to work with a lot of great customers having global presence. I am based in the Netherlands, but I'm a Belgian guy with Moroccan roots. I started in sales when I was 6 years old, working in my parents' shops on the market and all those kind of things. And started in sales about more than 20 years ago. So mostly a career in sales and marketing fields. And I worked for many technology companies. As a student, I worked for Microsoft, HP. I sold copy machines. It was my first job, selling copy machines on a subscription model, which was interesting. They were in advance at that time. And I worked on content management for EMC Documentum, worked at Salesforce, Adobe, Oracle. So a lot of household names from a technology perspective.
And in the sales side or the value side?
Sales side, yeah. Sales side. And I made a transition to value when I was at Adobe. So about 10 years ago now. And I had a chance to join the value team at Adobe and discovered a completely new world. That was very exciting.
I can imagine. Before I ask you any questions, I'd love to compliment you on your microphone. You're even more professionally set up than I am. I'm quite the amateur here. The sound quality is excellent.
Yeah! So I can tell my wife I'm not spending money in unwise way on Amazon. That's good.
So, Sultan, I'd love to dive a little bit deeper into the transition. So what made you transition from a sales role where, it's obviously there's a lot of potential financial gain from the sale because of commission structure and all that, into I wouldn't call it support, but a pre-sales or value role?
That's a good way to see it. It's really that transition. I think I was a decent sales guy. I made quota many years. I was earning well. But at that time, I was feeling a bit bored. That's a bit hard to say, but I was feeling bored. I had the feeling that it's always the same trick you apply, using the same, end quarter urgency and all those kind of tricks we use in sales. And
tricks?
Yeah, the tricks, yeah. And that's what I told my boss back then. And he was like, why would you leave sales? And sales is amazing. But I was looking for something different, something more challenging intellectually, if that makes sense. And that's how I saw actually what the value team was doing. It was really about how do you tie actually business objectives, you take the time to map business objective challenges. How do we deliver value in a unique way? What makes us unique? How do we build a business case for the customer? All those different elements were very attractive. And to be honest, I was always interested in doing something around consulting, but I was afraid that consulting meant you need to write 200 pages paper. And I was like, I'm not a writer. So that was my own blockade. But yeah, I think that's what attracted me to.
Did you make the change while you were at Adobe? So you were, in the sales side, and then a role opened up, and you basically applied for it.
Yeah. So I crossed. Yeah, I went to the dark side of the force back then.
And when you joined the team, how much interaction did you have with your colleagues? Did you suddenly join them as part of the sales process?
So back then I was sales. I was selling Adobe Campaign, which was the campaign management platform for Adobe. I was sales specialist. And so whenever there was an opportunity, I was either leading the opportunity or supporting the AE when they had a good relationship in place. Then I became a full support actually for the sales team. But knowing the team for the last, I think, 2.5 years that I was working with them. So I knew most of the people, I knew the organization. And that made that transition easy in a sense.
And how established was the value team when you joined them? How big was it?
It was, in EMEA, the team was about, I think, 8 people. We didn't have a presence yet, so I started covering the Benelux region, so Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg. Back then, we didn't have a local presence. Everything was done from the UK or from India. And so, so it was established. The methodology, the frameworks, a lot of that was already put in place. But it was not top of mind because there was no one running around on the office and asking, hey, do you have a business case for what you're working on?
Right. Interesting. I feel like there's been a growth in that over the last few years because of the macroeconomic situation, and buyers scrutinize every purchase much more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you noticed, we've heard that there's quite a difference between value in the US versus value in Europe. And that's purely as a result of the buy side behavior and correct me if I'm wrong, but where in Europe, sales cycles are slower because buyers are more scrutinous. They scrutinize each spend much more. They're a little bit less gung-ho about buying. Whereas in the US, for all the obvious reasons, the US is that kind of economic powerhouse, grows very quickly. People take more risks. Have you seen? So on the value side, you would assume that there would be a different set, maybe not a different set of tools, but maybe a different approach. I'd love your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't see the same divide between Europe and the US, especially when you are in Europe, because you'll have probably the Central Europe that will look, or Germany, that will be very precise about the business case and all the numbers, and you'll go 200 times over the numbers to make sure that they make sense and that it's well established, while Southern Europe might be less focused on every single detail, but more on the overall view. The UK that has more of a balanced view, strategy and numbers. So within Europe, we already have all those different areas. And the US, I would say the main difference that I'm seeing is that at the sales level, or the account executive, the sales, the business case often comes earlier, or the value narrative is stronger in US, in the sense that, so probably because of the type of companies we deal with, but you see that the narrative around shareholder value, for example, will be stronger when you do something in the US than when you do in Europe. In Europe, you'd probably look at the operational impact, the revenue impact, and so on. When you're in the US, you need to bring it one level higher about what will be the impact from a shareholder value, the stock price. You talk about those elements, which is something that in EMEA we don't do that as much, probably.
Is there a higher proportion of companies you work with in the US that are listed? Is that why, or is it just?
I guess so, but we also have listed company here. I think it's probably, it's something we need to think about, but it's probably because of the way that finance is probably looking at it, and the chain of command, and how things are very highly stock price driven in the US, while it's probably less in Europe.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. What's your experience on that?
And I don't have direct experience, but just in many conversations with different BVCs from both sides, you could sense a slight difference. And there's kind of a general understanding that because in Europe, companies do scrutinize the spend more, that there is a greater demand or rigor required on the business case in order to kind of secure it. The other difference that I've heard from a number of people is the concept of commit. When you get the verbal commit, you think like from a buyer.
Yeah.
Verbal commit in the US happens much sooner in the process than in Europe, meaning that the period between verbal commit and signature is longer in the US versus so in the UK, for instance, you won't get that verbal commit until pretty much everything is done. You've got you got the stakeholder buy-in, and you say, okay, send me the contract. Whereas in the US, it's like, yeah, love it, we're in, we'd like to go through, but then there's more selling to be done.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Not that much with the US, probably more when we work with the Middle East, for example, where you have more early buy-in and okay, yeah, let's do it, and it's good, and so on. And then you're like, okay, yeah, so when it's going to close? Yeah, next week. But then you get all those hooks coming back and forth, and then 6 months later, you're still discussing the legal, discussing that. Surprise coming up. Now, I think the companies we deal with have usually, maybe you get better certainty on when a deal is going to close, but it ties back, I think, to the work that you are doing in mapping the value that your solution will provide. So when you are able to build actually that sense of urgency with any kind of company, and you can tell them, look, signature is great, but getting value is more important. And by starting next week, by delaying, this is what it's going to cost you every month of delay. You can drive the urgency. And I think that's the craft of our team to help actually build that story, because our clients usually want to buy. We're just there to help them. So we need to help them justify internally that if we don't accelerate, if legal takes 2 more weeks, we're leaving 200K on the table. And that's a shame. So that's probably our responsibility to drive that.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting you say that, because it's very true that the business value consultant has a very different role in the relationship with a customer or a prospect than the salesperson. Would love your thoughts on that, because I see that there's a stronger level of trust put into the BVC.
Yeah, that's absurd. We are there and that's probably what I love about the transition from sales to value, and that I enjoy the most, is that you are more of a trust partner. We're not there to sell, we're there to help. We can say that, of course, we prefer to work together with a client, especially if we invest time and effort and so on, but it's less high stakes. I like to call us value coaches, because we are there to build trust and help people speak about value, and value can be so many different things. So we're there to translate for them, for us, for everyone, and make sure that we align on what we are all talking about. Make sure we speak the same language.
It made me think that, have you ever come across it? Because a sales rep's goal is to get to the finish line as fast as possible, right? They've got pipeline, they've got an open deal, they want to get from discovery to close one as fast as possible. A BVC's role is to generate as much value as possible, and that generation of value is for both parties, the vendor and the buyer, right? Because that's how it's a mutual exchange. How often do you get that tension where a rep just wants to get the deal done? Oh, there's still more to unpack, that we can and how do you manage that? Because it's a different kind of stakeholder in the process, right?
Yeah, they want to, in many cases, they want the business case yesterday. And that's an education thing that needs to happen to all understand how those things work. And what I usually tell them is, look, I can put $2 million on a slide that a customer will get the day after you sign a contract, but the customer knows it's BS, their CFO knows it's BS, and it will go nowhere. One of the first things that a client told me when I started in value long time ago, when I was young and innocent, he said, big numbers bring big questions. So he said, yeah, I know we're going to make a lot of money working with you guys, but we don't need to showcase that as part of the business case. Just keep it low and acceptable enough that we believe in it. And if the customer buys into it, then it's okay. So that's what we need to explain to the reps. It's a business case. It's not just a number on a slide. It's an engagement that you build over time and build a relationship and you align with them. And yeah, that's a continuous challenge, I think, for all of us.
And how often, if you do you ever refer back to the business case post-sale as a way to track value realized?
Not enough. I think that's a key challenge we see. So I also ran the Value Consulting Institute. We did a survey 6 months ago, I think, where we looked at the gaps or where value is being applied. And we see that the post-sale area is, unless you have a good, mature customer lifecycle journey management and so on, in many cases, the business case is there to justify the investment, not necessarily as a tool to measure success. And on our side right now, we're doing we started implementing that as part of the onboarding and make sure that every onboarding has the business case and that we follow that. But it's a tough process. It's change management that I'm not sure how many companies are doing. What's your view on that?
Well, there is a lot of talk. Most companies that we work with are very interested in value realization because of how expensive it is to acquire a new customer and the importance of extending the lifetime value. And so there is a lot of interest. So we've got two products with Symbi. We've got value, the business case solution, and then the value realization. One morphs into the other. And so there's a lot of talk about that revenue bow tie, right? The sale and then customer success. But the tracking in itself requires a degree of diligence on both parties and accountability, because as great a vendor as one may be, they're unable to track everything on the buyer side, on the customer side, because that's their own data. And so it needs to be a partnership in tracking the success of this relationship. So the champion almost either needs to take on that or hand it over to an internal champion on the customer side to track it.
Yeah, and the problem is probably that person has not been in touch or is part of the sales. And additional challenge is, but I like your view also on the client responsibility. It's also the time to implement. So if you sell tomorrow and it takes 6 months to go live, the world has changed 25 times in 6 months. And so, yeah, it needs to be part of the relationship.
And you need it needs to morph, right? Because like you said, the business case, it is a static document. It was finalized on a certain date. And, 6 months later, things may have changed. Mm-hmm. And so, and not only that, but maybe the key stakeholder is no longer there. So maybe somebody new comes in and says, what did we sign up to?
Yeah.
That business case forms one part of the audit trail of why a decision was made, but equally should be something that can evolve based on both parties' assessment of the situation.
No, true point.
I love the how you use the business case as part of the onboarding process with CS. It's kind of the main document for the handover. Do you use it regularly?
Yeah, we started using regularly since a couple of months now. And the key reason is that when we do the business case, usually the discovery will be more complete. And you want to make sure that as soon as the CSM's on board and get the success plan in place, that they have the information. The customer does not need to repeat what they said for weeks and for months during the sales cycle, depending on how long it took. So that's
very clever.
Yeah.
Very, very prudent. Well, Sultan, now we've reached my favorite part of these fireside chats, where I get to ask you two relatively uncomfortable questions. The first one is, in your now 10 years in the business value space, I believe, who is the best business value consultant or value engineer that you've worked with? Either a mentor, a peer, could be anybody.
Okay, thank you. I knew this was coming and still it's not comfortable. So I have, that's a tough one. Actually, I have multiple. That's a difficulty. You asked me to choose.
You can name more than one. We'll allow you to cheat.
Thank you so much. So first one, top of the list is Chris Tennant. He currently leads the value at Zuora. That was my hiring manager. I joined his team at Adobe.
I think I've met him.
Yeah, I think you probably met him. He has an IQ of 5,000, I think. He's thinking at a different level, highly structured guy, great at analyzing number and being able to tell the story. I think the AI probably have downloaded him to try to do what they do. He's brilliant. So Chris is really my hero. And then I have a couple of guys I've been working with. I have within my team, I have Thomas Obermeier, based in Germany, brilliant value consultant, very detailed, so German, so very detail oriented, but great at going from big picture to small detail and being able to go back and forth. And I'm working also with Jonathan Corley, one of my colleagues in the US. And Jonathan is also one of those super smart guys, amazing memory, amazing ability to take very complex concepts and being able to translate that into a easy story to grasp. So, yeah.
Thank you, Sultan. And equally, you've worked with many sales reps. You were one before, so you can't name yourself. But who's been the best, the best sales rep you worked with?
The best sales rep I work with. Oh, that's a guy I need to call. Thomas Verhagen. Worked with him when I was at EMC. A sales guy. What I loved about him is how his qualification was brutal. Yeah, so he had the ability, so he was getting calls back then. I remember he had a call from the prospect that was calling him. And he was able to go from, is that an opportunity or is that someone that wants free consulting? And he was so good at managing his time, making sure he doesn't get sidetracked, always reaching quota and going above it, because of the ability to really focus on the key things and execute. So that's, yeah. And I have many others, but they'll be sad. Sorry, guys.
Sultan, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Martin, for having me.